Hello. If you are the type of person that wants to have a TBR, but you never have the time to make one, don't worry, I've got you. I've made an entire list of reads for the winter season. Now, just because I said winter season doesn't mean they are winter books. No, they are just books to read over the winter season. I'm going to be going over new releases, sci-fi, fantasy, thriller, romance, and memoirs. The first books we're going to talk about are new releases because I feel those are the most highly anticipated. The first book on my TBR is The Breakup Tour by Emily Wimberly and Austin Sigmund-Broca. And this is said to be released on January 23rd, 2024. This story is about a musician named Riley whose hit breakup song becomes the center of controversy when her ex-husband claims it's about him. So to set the record straight, Riley reconnects with Max, who is the true inspiration behind her song, and asks him to go public as her songwriting muse. He then reluctantly agrees under one condition, that he will be able to join her in her band on tour. When I read the synopsis for this book, I was a little confused because I was like, why would you ever let your ex come on tour with you? Seems kind of odd. I don't know if he's also a musician and I missed that part. I'm assuming that's what it is. That's what we're gonna guess here. But I have been craving Daisy Jones and the Six Vibes ever since I finished that book, and this kind of seems like that. The next book is The Fury by Alex 𝚌𝚘𝚖𝚎, and this comes out on January 16th, 2024. You might know this author because he's the author of The Maidens and The Silent Patient. It's so good. So I will read anything that he writes just because I like the books I've read so far, and this is a 5-star read to me. The Fury is a thrilling story that unfolds when a retired movie star and her famous friends plan a spontaneous trip to a private Greek island. Soon after they arrive, they are faced with a sudden murder that disrupts their getaway and are left to question whether they are next. The next book is Bride by Ali Hazelwood, and this comes out on February 6th. And this is a vampire paranormal romance. And there's also some werewolves in there too. This is the Jacob and Bella story that we never got. Bride by Ali Hazelwood is about an arranged marriage between a werewolf and a vampire. Now, our lovely vampire has no idea the werewolf is in love with her, even though he continues to drop hints, and she remains oblivious, left to question her feelings. If you've read any of Ali Hazelwood's books, you know that these romances are very, very spicy. Sometimes you have entire chapters dedicated to just a scene. That being said, I'm not expecting this book to be any different. Therefore, just know what you're getting yourself into if you read any of her books. The next book is Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros, and this came out on November 7th. Now, technically this already came out, but it is still a new release in my book because it's very, very recent. And this is the second installment to the Fourth Wing series, which I will be talking about later because the first book is also on my TBR. Iron Flame is a fantasy where we get to follow Violet as she joins her second year at college, training to become a dragon rider. The training at this college is intense and extremely hard, and every day she is left wondering if she will make it through. The next book is System Collapse by Martha Wells, and this is the 7th book in the Murderbot series. So if you've never heard of the Murderbot Diaries, it is a sci-fi dystopian novel that takes place in a world where AI is a big part of our society along with robots. And in this series, we explore the Murderbots specifically, who are the protector of humans. The last book on my new release list is Down the Drain by Julia Fox, and this came out on October 10th. I don't really know who she is. The only reason I want to read this is because she wrote it herself, which is very impressive. That's not something you commonly see with celebrities. Normally they have a ghostwriter, and writing a book is very hard, so I applaud her. Second, Jack Edwards made a video where he read and reviewed this book, and he just made it seem so good that I instantly knew I had to read it to know what he was talking about.
One day, I come into work to find that my cherry red patent leather Jimmy Choo pumps, gifted to me by a loyal foot fetishist, were used as an ashtray.
In this book, Fox recounts her turbulent path to cultural supremacy, her parents' volatile relationship that divided her childhood between Italy and New York City and left her largely raised by herself. This book delves into her chaotic childhood, describing scenes of abuse, neglect, and addiction, along with near-death experiences. Now we're moving on into thrillers, which is my favorite book genre ever. First up on my list is The Perfect Child by Lucinda Berry. Now, something I would like to mention about this author, she's actually a Dr. Lucinda Berry. She is a trauma psychologist and she's a leading researcher in childhood trauma. Therefore, the things that she speaks about in this book are indeed taken from her clinical experiences, which is really cool because then you know that the things you're reading are accurate and they're not entirely fiction. But she does enjoy blurring the lines between fiction and nonfiction. This story is about Christopher and Hannah, a happily married couple that find their perfect life lacking a child. When Christopher meets Janie, a 6-year-old girl who has been abandoned at their hospital, he convinces his wife Hannah to adopt Janie into their family. But once she comes into their family, their lives take a turn for the worst, leaving you wondering if the girl is an evil child or if the mom is imagining it all. Before we move on with any more books, I wanted to introduce today's sponsor, which is Skillshare. So if you don't know what Skillshare is the largest online learning platform made by creatives for creatives. They have a wide variety of topics ranging from video editing to graphic design, photography, music, marketing, and productivity. Skillshare quite literally has everything you need to turn your passion into a paycheck, or if you just even want a side hustle. Whether you want to learn how to write a book or how to edit videos, Skillshare can help you do that. So I'm currently taking classes in DaVinci Resolve, which is an editing program, because I've been using iMovie for a really long time and I've been trying to teach myself DaVinci just because it's a far better program. But unfortunately, I've had zero success. It's been extremely beneficial to have a professional I can learn from at my own pace, all from the comfort of my own home. Okay, but the best part is Skillshare is doing something really special for this video. So for the first 500 people to click on the link in my description box down here, we'll get a 1-month trial of Skillshare absolutely free. Thank you so much again to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video, and let's get back to the books. The next book is Sometimes I Lie by Alice Feeney. I've talked about her books before and she always has such a good plot twist. So I just, if I like an author, I will continue to read their books, and this is an example of that. So Sometimes I Lie starts off like this. Number 1, I'm in a coma. Number 2, my husband doesn't love me anymore. And number 3, sometimes I lie. So right off the bat, we know that we have an unreliable narrator, meaning that anything that we read could potentially be a lie. This story is about Amber, who wakes up in a hospital, unable to move, speak, or open her eyes. But she can hear everyone around her, and they have no idea. Amber doesn't remember what happened to her, but she has suspicion that her husband has something to do with it. This story alternates between her paralyzed present, the week before her accident, and a series of childhood memories from 20 years ago. The next book is We Spread by Ian Reid. Penny is an elderly artist residing in her apartment filled with memories, until the onset of unsettling incidents leads her to a unique long-term care residence. Initially, life there seemed peaceful, surrounded by peers and immersed in nature. However, as the days blur together, Penny grapples with a growing sense of unrest and distrust, questioning whether she's amounting to the effects of aging or participating in something more unsettling. The next book, which is also by Ian Reid, is I'm Thinking of Ending Things, and this is also a Netflix show. I think it's a show or a series or a movie. So once you read it, you can watch the series, and I keep seeing it pop up, and I'm telling myself I'm going to read the book first before I watch it. This story is about a young woman who is contemplating ending her current relationship with her boyfriend. But in spite of all of her reservations, she decides to take a road trip with him to meet his parents on their remote farm. Soon after she arrives, his parents start asking very inappropriate questions, making her feel extremely uncomfortable. And as she roams around the house, things begin to take a morbid turn. I read more into the synopsis, but I don't want to give anything away, so I think that's enough, and let me just tell you, it gets crazy. The next book is My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Jones, and this is a horror, so definitely read the trigger warnings. I actually haven't even read them myself, so I need to before I pick up this book. This novel follows Jade Daniels, a horror enthusiast who believes she can predict real-life events based on horror movie tropes. Set in a small town facing gruesome murders, Jade's expertise in horror becomes a chilling reality, exploring the themes of trauma, cultural identity, and the boundary between fiction and reality. I also want to read the second book in the series, which is Don't Fear the Reaper. I'm not going to tell you exactly what this is about, because it would ruin the first one. If you hear the synopsis, you will understand what happened in the first one. So I don't want to give anything away, but this one is on my TBR. So it's just what I'm going to read. If I really like the first one, I'll continue reading the series, because there's also a third one that will be coming out in March as well. And that one is called The Angel of Indian Lake. If you have read any of the books in the series though, let me know what you thought of them. The next series I would like to talk about is the You series by Caroline Kepnes. And there's also a TV show based on the book series, which is equally as good in my opinion. So I've already read You, but I will tell you what it's about before I talk about the rest of the books, just in case you haven't. So You is about a psychopath stalker named Joe Goldberg, who lives in New York City, and he loves to stalk women that he is infatuated with. And soon he becomes obsessed with a girl named Guinevere, and things go downhill from there. The second book in the series is called Hidden Bodies. This story continues to follow Joe Goldberg as he relocates to Los Angeles, California to try to escape his awful past. He soon realizes after he arrives he cannot change his obsessive ways, and finds himself falling in love with an inspiring actress named Love Quinn. The third book of the series is called You Love Me. This story continues to follow Joe when he moves to a small town and takes a job at a library, attempting to create a new identity. However, his old habits begin to resurface once again as he becomes infatuated with a new target. And the fourth book of the series is You and For Only You. In this, Joe Goldberg transitions from selling books to writing books. He ends up joining a prestigious writing fellowship at Harvard, where he befriends his already published, already distinguished peers who all seem to be cut from the same elitist cloth. This is definitely the book for anyone that loves a dark academia vibe, and I've seen this season that's based around this book, and it was so good. I can only imagine this book is also going to be equally as good. Now we are moving on into the sci-fi portion of this video. First up, we've got I, Robot by Isaac Asimov. This is a collection of 9 short stories about robots with a human-like AI, and whether humans are wise enough or logical enough to anticipate the consequences of their own technology. There's also a movie based off of these short stories. The movie is so good, so if you love seeing a alternate universe, well, which is kind of our own, where AI and robots are due to take over any day now, read this. The next book is Tinder is the Flesh by Agustina Bazterrica. Tinder is the Flesh portrays a society in which a virus contaminates all animal meat, and consuming human meat has now become legal. So if you didn't get from that summary, it is a book about cannibalism, and it is a dystopian horror, but I am going to put it under sci-fi because I feel that's still, the same thing. Now we're going to talk about the Murderbot Diaries, which I mentioned earlier in the new releases, but I wanted to kind of talk more in detail about that book series. All the books in the series are listed in this order: All Systems Red, Artificial Condition, Rogue Protocol, Exit Strategy, Network Effect, Fugitive, Telemetry, and System Collapse. And they are novellas, so they're a tad bit shorter, around 150 to 200 pages, really quick and easy to get through, and the story building is incredible, and if you love sci-fi, you will be in love with the series. So just a little more about the series. I already mentioned before, it is about a murder bot, which is an AI robot that is only there to protect humans. Other than protecting humans, they don't have any other thoughts going through their head. That is until we encounter our main murder bot, who ends up overriding his programming and deciding to escape his company to go live in the real world because he just wants to watch TV all day in his head. Like, he loves human TV shows and he finds humans fascinating but also stupid. So there's a bit of satire in this, and you could technically just read all of these at once because it would just be this entire story. Like, it's just like one book in my head. I've read the first and I've read half of the second, and chef's kiss. The next book series we're moving into is the Lunar Chronicles, and this is by Marissa Meyer. This is the Cinder series, Scarlet. Okay, it's not, I'm saying that wrong. It's the book, let me just talk about the book. And this is a retelling of Cinderella, but with a sci-fi dystopian twist. In this story, you follow Cinder, who is a cyborg and a gifted mechanic working in the town of New Beijing. And in this dystopian town, there is a deadly virus that has been unleashed, killing people instantly. Throughout this story, you will get to see Cinder, who ends up crossing paths with the prince, amongst many other events that take place. This story is not cut and dry as Cinderella. It goes so much deeper, which is why I absolutely loved this book. Second book of the series is Scarlet. Now, Scarlet is a retelling of Little Red Riding Hood. As Cinder seeks a daring prison break, becoming the Commonwealth's most wanted, simultaneously Scarlet's grandmother goes missing, leading Scarlet to Wolf, who is a street fighter. Soon, they join forces with Cinder, facing the threat of the Lunar Queen. The third book, which is Cress, is a retelling of Rapunzel. The story centers on Cress, who is a skilled hacker trapped in a satellite. She aids main characters like Cinder and Scarlet in the rebellion against the Lunar Queen, blending elements of Rapunzel's story. The last book of the series is Winter, and this is a retelling of Snow White. This story follows Princess Winter, who rejects her lunar gifts and decides to join Cinder, Scarlet, and Cress in the rebellion against the Lunar Queen. There are also many other books covering the backstories of the characters, so if you like the main four, you can always read the other ones. I'm going to just read the main four first, and then if I'm like super in love, I will dive into the rest. Now we are moving into the fantasy category, and the first book on the list is Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. This book has been exploding. I've been seeing it everywhere. I've been hearing people talk about it all the time, and I haven't really read a fantasy that I have been in love with recently. The last one I read was Shadow and Bone, I'm pretty sure. So I really want to read another series that could just immerse me like Shadow and Bone did. The Fourth Wing is a story about Violet, who is a young cadet training to become a dragon rider at an elite war college, where the only rule is to graduate or to perish while trying. The second book of the series is called Iron Flame, which I mentioned earlier. That is a newer release that came out in November, and this follows Violet at her second year at the Dragon Riding College. Now we're going to talk about a series you might know because it's very popular. I'm a little behind on reading this. So the series is the Folk of the Air series, and the book is The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This story is about Jude, who is orphaned at 7, who wants to fit into the high court of Fairy. Despite hostility, especially from Prince Carden, she challenges him to secure her place. Jude then forms a dangerous alliance to save her sisters and the entire fairy realm. The second book is The Wicked King. After learning that Oak is the heir to Fairy, Jude must keep her younger brother safe. And to do so, she has bound the Wicked King, Carden, to make her and herself the power behind the throne. The last book of the series is The Queen of Nothing. This story follows Jude after being pronounced Queen of Fairy and then abruptly being exiled by the Wicked King Carden. Okay, where's the lovers part? I see the enemies part. They're making that very clear. But where's the lovers part? Now we're moving on into romance, and there's only one book on this list other than the one I mentioned in new releases, and that book is Happy Place by Emily Henry. And I know I'm late reading this, and this came out this summer, but here I am. Happy Place is a romantic comedy about two friends who pretend to be in a relationship for 1 week because they don't want to tell their friends they actually broke up 5 months ago. They are attending a trip with their friends, something that they do once a year, and it's such a special trip that they just don't want to ruin the experience for everyone. And of course, as they're on this trip, they may or may not end up back in love. And the last book on this list is a memoir, and it's Spare by Prince Harry. I was gonna say Harry Styles, wrong person. And this was ghostwritten by J.R. Moehringer, which is really important to note. Since this is a memoir, you are going to get an unprecedented insight into the life as a royal. Harry reflects on his mother's death, his complex relationships with other family members, and his battles with the press. I've always been so fascinated with the royal family, and I've always wondered what goes on behind closed doors. And when I ended up watching the Prince Harry and Meghan Markle Netflix series, I was so shocked to find out they actually don't live in a castle. Like, he didn't live in a castle. I was like, wait, I thought they did. Well, that is it for my winter TBR. I don't even know how many books I put on this list. I'm gonna count after, but I feel like it was a lot. Anyways, I hope you found some new books to check out, and I hope you read some with me. I love reading books with you guys, so let me know if you've read any of these or if you read any of these so we can chat about it in the comments. I just love doing that. Maybe I should start a Discord. I hope you have an incredible rest of your day, night, whenever you're watching this, and I'll see you in the next one.